Hello, everybody. Louise Eddington, Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology here with your week ahead forecast beginning October the 6th, taking you right through to, I guess, October the 13th. And as a reminder, I go through day by day, showing you the major transits. If you kind of like more granular detail or you enjoy my writing, I would invite you to become a paid subscriber to my Substack daily posts, where I talk about all the lunar aspects and often do a lot of astrological teaching moments and bring other stuff into it. But I like to do these week ahead forecasts in video and written form for for free. I haven't done the written one for the past 3, 4 weeks, mainly because the eclipse season sent my life into chaos, and it's okay. It was not all bad, but you can see I had dental surgery, so I'm still healing. I had a friend visit from the UK for 16 days. I had to let go of one via virtual assistant and find another one because the first one just, anyway, whatever, and more. So it's been crazy. Okay. And this week ahead, beginning October the 6th, is going to be a little bit churny as well, really, because we are still under the energy of those eclipses. That Pisces eclipse that was conjunct Neptune, I did say there would be a big water event, and sending so much love to all the area affected by Hurricane Helene. But the second eclipse, the solar eclipse, actually kind of pushed it up the coast. The actual line on the geodetic mundane map of where the planetary lines fell was actually the path of that hurricane. You cannot make this stuff up. But let's look to the week ahead. And then I'm in fact, as I talk, I'm going to pull 3 cards for it, and we'll look at those at the end. And well, you'll be glad to hear the nice cards that stay around to see what they are at the end. All right. So the week ahead, it does have Jupiter stationing retrograde. I've done a whole new video on that one that's going to be released at some point. You can find it on my channel. It's scheduled to go out, and Pluto is going to station direct, and I'll do a whole video on that. But Jupiter in Gemini once every 12 years, spends about a year in each sign. I looked in the video at the last one so that you could look at the dates and kind of remember back and look at what was happening. Pluto stationing direct for the last time in Capricorn in our lifetimes. And Pluto will start moving back into Aquarius to re-enter on November the 19th, and we'll be there for a long time. So I'll do a whole video on that as well. But two big planetary stations in one week are going to bring some turning points and transitions, and I'll talk about that as we go through. So let me share the chart. So you can see we start. I always, oh, why have I got that time? I usually put 12 a.m., but anyway. Hmm. Okay, so start of October the 6th. We have the moon's in Scorpio. The moon is in Scorpio all this weekend. Again, on my Substack daily blog, I talk about the lunar transits and things. But we start actually with quite a busy day. Or do we? Maybe. So October the 6th, the first major aspect we have is that Mars over here is going to aspect Nessus. the buck stops here, Centaur, over there in Pisces. Now, I don't always mention the centaurs in these weekly reports, but I am today because this is highly significant because Venus and Mars are approaching a trine, and they're both going to trine Nessus, forming really a watery grand trine. You can see it building here. And water grand trines can be very emotional, also very creative, but they can tend to be very wash. You think about the energy of water energy, tends to erode, tends to wash things away. Now, Nessus has been revealing hidden abuses of power for quite some time in the sign of Pisces. And Nessus has also been working with Saturn because Saturn and Nessus stationed retrograde around the same time at the same degree. And so this is a lot of purging. This is a lot of revealing. This is all that's coming out of where people have basically abused their power. Now, this can be happening in your childhood trauma, Mars in Cancer as well, bringing up. It can also happen, occur about perhaps sexual abuse trauma coming out with Venus in Scorpio. This grand trine, to my mind, is really going to reveal a lot over the next period. And I always think of Pisces energy when there's these kind of revelations as clouds parting. And it's like suddenly I see kind of energy. So that's how we start the week with Mars cutting into really and saying, I've had enough and we're going to do things differently here. Mars's action, Mars's will, Mars's drive. In Cancer, said to be, in not happy in Cancer, and it can be a little bit touchy and sensitive. So you may feel a little bit emotionally stung with this aspect. But also Mars in Cancer is a compassionate warrior. And so tune into that energy of it and show that same compassion for yourself and others. Okay. Now, later on the 6th, the moon will actually move into Sagittarius at 7:34 p.m. on Sunday, and we get a couple of days of the moon in the sign of Sagittarius. So let's move on to the next day. So on October the 7th, of course, that's the anniversary of the raid into Israel by Hamas. So I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that. And that could also bring up a lot around abuse of power, but I'm not going to go there. That's kind of like another whole thing. But I've kind of already mentioned what it means. So, but Venus will trine Nessus exactly on October the 7th at 12:14 p.m. And then on October the 8th, Venus will come up and exactly trine Mars. So really this watery grand trine that I've talked about is going to dominate the early part of the week. So really, and it's going to occur as the new moon eclipse, the solar eclipse energy is gaining light and moving into taking action as well. And so you may find, especially with the moon in Sagittarius, that you're drawn to going, I'm going to free myself of this. We're not going to do this anymore, and move towards the future. So Venus will trine Mars on October the 8th, exactly at 6:21 a.m. But of course, we're going to feel this for quite some time. Then shortly after that trine, we get some Mercury action. Mercury is over here. Mercury still combusts the sun, by the way. So it's kind of bringing in information from elsewhere. And Mercury on the 8th as well will trine Jupiter, with Jupiter's actually stationing retrograde to station retrograde on the 9th. So this is a powerful aspect, but also opposed Chiron. That's all happening. The Mercury trine Jupiter is 8:22 a.m. Eastern, and then just over 2 hours later, Mercury will oppose Chiron at 10:36 a.m. Eastern. And of course, that really, in the big scheme of things, is occurring at the same time. This is a big, powerful aspect. News, look for the news. Something big is going to come out, I think, that has actually got the potential to be really healing, but it can also open up those wounds before we kind of can do the healing. This is big information coming in, possibly around areas of justice and equitable matters and relationships, significant relationships, and who you are in those relationships. So that's also a big kind of period. So the 8th is a pretty big day, right? Okay, so on to the 9th. And on Wednesday, the 9th, Jupiter will station retrograde at 3:04 a.m. exactly at this degree. If you have placements activated by that, especially of the mutable signs, you will be feeling this greatly. It's exactly opposing my sun. But anyway, there's other aspects to it as well. And but it doesn't have to be bad. It's kind of can bring in information that you need to like perhaps where have I been overly bombastic? I've done a whole video on that, so go and watch that. Where have I pushed my views onto others in relationships, significant relationships, to a degree, but also a lot of truth is going to be revealed. Now, Jupiter stations retrograde at 3:04 a.m. But you can see the moon is in Sagittarius here still. So just earlier before that, even though, I don't normally talk about the lunar aspects, in the afternoon of October the 8th, the moon opposes stationing Jupiter as well. And all of this is square to an asteroid Vesta. So it is going to bring a lot of shifting perspectives and things. And I talk about that in the Jupiter retrograde video. Then, not long after Jupiter stations retrograde, the moon dips into Capricorn for a couple of days. So more serious, more dedicated, from fun, visionary, forward-thinking Sagittarius. So, okay, so on to the 10th. Now I'm going to look at an aspect I probably would normally not look at, but I'm going to because of what's happening around it. So in fact, I'm going to draw some lines just to make it crystal clear what's going on here. Okay, Venus has reached this, and Venus, oh, where's my lines gone? Oh, that's the wrong lines, that's why. This is hilarious. We've got two windows up that have lines on them that you kind of go, oh, which one am I doing to draw the lines on? Oh, stop, get rid of that. Okay, there we go. You probably couldn't even see what was in my way. So anyway, on the 10th, we have this happening. And I think it's significant. So I don't normally look at the quincunxes because they're not minor aspects, they're important, but I can't look at everything for a week ahead. But this, because Jupiter has just stationed retrograde and is a significant one. This is a finger of fate or God or Yod, pointing right there at Venus in Scorpio. And Jupiter expands everything. Jupiter is in a sextile aspect to Chiron in Aries. And this is the two benefics, if you want to give them that term. I don't like those terms that much, but this to me is a real healing opportunity, especially around manipulation and abuse of the divine feminine, for want of a better word. Something remember we start the week with things being revealed. Then we have this yod pointing right at Venus, saying something is major is going to come out around abuses in relationships. Okay, I think this week. So this is quite powerful. Okay, so I'm just getting rid of those lines. And then, oh, no, stop. Okay. Then we move on to we're still on the 10th. Okay, on the 10th, then we actually reached the first quarter moon. So we had the eclipse. The moon has moved all the way from 10 degrees Libra, where the eclipse was, and has moved through into Capricorn. So I am actually going to show you this, even though I will write in detail about that in my Substack, of course. But later on October the 10th, here you go, at 2:55 p.m., we have the crisis in action or crossroads in action phase of the moon. The moon is in determined Capricorn, ready to achieve, ready to build, ready to master something. And the sun is still over here in Libra. These are initiating cardinal signs. It's really time to start to take action on things that are emerging from the eclipse and all those things that have been revealed. So that's quite a big first quarter moon. In my Substack blog, I'll look at the symbols for that and all kinds of things. But on to the 11th, I'm just going to leave the time where it is. The moon finishes up in Capricorn and moves into Aquarius, future thinking for a couple of days. But then on the 11th, Pluto stations direct for the last time ever in our lifetimes. Pluto has a 248-year orbit, and Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, has dipped into Aquarius a couple of times. Now, at this point, on October the 11th, it only has a month and 8 days left in Capricorn in our lifetimes to mop up, to finish up this long journey of transformation and digging up of the shadow in the structures of our lives. At the anaretic degree, at the last potent liminal threshold degree of Capricorn, this is going to bring some major kind of mopping up, I'm going to say. And, just think about your life in the last 16 years since 2008 and think about what you've transformed, what you've changed, and what needs finishing up because you've got just over a month to finish. Well, pretty much you have, but this is huge, this station direct, and especially coming on the back of all the other things that we've had going on. And I do notice, even though I don't normally talk about these things, that this is in a square to Black Moon Lilith. I do still think that the abortion, the sexual, gender dynamic politics are definitely going to be coming into play over the next week or so. Well, till the election, really, and beyond everywhere. It's not just happening in the USA, of course. We just have this big, big election. Okay, so on October the 12th, so right to next Saturday now, Jupiter actually perfects that aspect to Chiron that was involved in that finger of fate pointing at Venus. And I'm going to say that this finger of fate or yod points at Venus, for most of the end of the week. So we have that watery grand trine at the start, and then involving Venus and Mars. And then we have this finger of fate, finger of God, sexual politics, sexual abuse, gender abuse, all that kind of stuff is going to be up, up, up for you, for everybody, I think, this week in a big way, all week. Okay, so, and then on October the 13th. So I don't always go into the 13th, but I am going to give you a bit of a heads up moving into next Sunday, that Mercury will move to that last degree of Libra and square Pluto as well. Remember, Black Moon Lilith was squaring Pluto as Pluto station direct. Pluto's still at the station degree. He sits there for a few days. And Mercury, the messenger, who was um, he was in the throne of the sun the day before the eclipse, conjunct the eclipse. I think there's going to be some big news coming out, to be quite honest. Huge, huge, huge. That's kind of going to change everything. So, but it can also be for you information that comes from deep in your shadow. You may be doing some deep shadow work this week as Pluto stations direct. Just a I'm not going to go on the chart, but just a little look ahead to the rest of next Sunday. Mercury will then move into Scorpio. There's some other minor aspects, but I do want to mention that Mercury will then um, oppose Chiron, and remember that that was all involved. Will Mercury oppose Chiron? No. No, sorry. Mars will square Chiron. So all of these planets, Mars will square Chiron, beg my pardon. All of these planets are lining up at 21 degrees. They were making that finger of fate or God to Venus at 21 degrees. The sun is going to come up to 21 degrees as well and aspect all of these energies. Mars is now at 21 degrees. So that's a hot degree at the very end of the week and next weekend for that yard and all these other aspects, which I will talk more about next week. All right, so let me get the cards. So we've got some pretty powerful cards here. So even though it's quite churny and there's probably going to be a bit of a disturbance in the force, I am going to tell you that we have some nice cards this week. So let me go through them. And I'm going to I used my favorite deck, the Toss Tarot, and the Tarot Handbook by Angeles Arian. I love to just read her work on it because she just really seems tuned into these cards. These are my favorite cards. Somebody gave them to me, and the minute I got them and opened them, I was like, this is my deck. But anyway, the start of the week, we do have inspired creativity, the Prince of Wands, and mastering. And we have that waterground trine that, I did mention could be revealing all these abuses of power. But water signs are very creative as well and very much about kind of inspiration, kind of coming from elsewhere. So this is the dynamic mastery of unlimited creative expression that's totally inspired from deep within. Look at him. You can see how his reins are casually thrown over his arm. He's not kind of guiding. He's just in flow. And that's very watery as well, even though this is a fire card. So that's happening. Then we get my card. I'm a life path 5, so my card is the Hierophant. Now, if you don't know what Hierophants are, they were kind of priest figures, but they were Hierophants are more interpreters rather than preachers. And this is the principle of learning and teaching. And remember, so much is going to come through this week with this Jupiter station and all those aspects. So much information, so much news. And so let me read a little bit about this card from this book. But I want to read you the quote that she posts with it. As you teach, so will you learn. If that is true, and it is true indeed, do not forget that what you teach is teaching you. And that's actually from Course in Miracles. And this represents the universal principle of learning and teaching that is experienced within our families and in life challenges that require us to trust our faith. Okay, I'm not going to go into all the details, but that watery grand trine could test your faith and trust a little bit. So Hierophant is here to say you're learning from it, and that what you teach is teaching you. All right, so then the end of the week. Oh my God, I love this card for the end of the week. And again, I do want to read what she has to say about it, but just look at this beautiful card. Ace of Cups. Aces are always lovely. This is the open heart, the clear heart, the trusting heart, the spiritual heart. This is the Holy Grail sitting within the emotional nature, which is represented by the blue cup. It's the state of emotional integrity that's represented by the double reflected feelings, rainbow, sorry. The capacity to express accurately feelings that are being experienced internally. That's all I'm going to say. So, it is a bit kind of churny this week. It makes me laugh because I go to this gym where we use this machine and I have these churns, so like I'm churning butter. I always kind of think of that when I say it. With these, there's going to be a lot of information to process this week, so make sure you do your self-care. But I think again, it's another one where we're moving in a very positive direction overall, despite what's revealed, and that might seem a little bit challenging at times. So hold the faith, keep the faith, and do you like my t-shirt? Harris Walls for a brighter tomorrow, it says. Anyway, see you next time.